I don't know what I expected when I agreed to share a hotel room with Ryan for this trip other than saving a bit of cash. But standing there at the check-in desk, the receptionist smiled and handed us one key card. Sorry, we're all out of doubles tonight, just one king bed available. She didn't blink. Ryan laughed like it was nothing. I laughed too. But inside, something shifted. This wasn't just any trip. And Ryan wasn't just any friend. I've known him since freshman. Year-dorm neighbors turned gym buddies, then travel companions, then something blurrier. Over time, we collected rituals. Post-workout tacos, late-night movie marathons, our inside joke about him being the worst road trip DJ in history. He always claimed 90s boy bands were underrated. I always rolled my eyes and hummed along. Anyway, when he invited me on this weekend hike and relax escape, just the two of us, I said yes before thinking. I'd been working too much. Life felt static. Maybe I wanted a change. Maybe I wanted him to change something. Now, the lobby smelled like vanilla and cedarwood. His arm brushed mine as we walked to the elevator. I caught the clean scent of his. Cologne subtle, minty, something familiar. My backpack bumped awkwardly against my side, but my heart was what felt out of place. I've never told Ryan how I feel. How I've felt, really, for years. It started as a crush, grew into something harder to shake. The worst part is, he doesn't know, or maybe he does and chooses not to say anything. We've always had that easy rhythm, close, but not too close, affectionate, but never crossing lines. But this room with one bed, that felt like a line someone else had drawn for us. He shoved open the door with his shoulder and stepped in first. Not bad, right? He said, flipping on the light. The space was cozy modern cabin style, big window facing the forest, wood beams across the ceiling. The bed sat squarely in the middle, huge and singular. Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. Guess we're getting real close this weekend. He smirked. Dude, you've literally fallen asleep on my couch more times than I can count. You snore. I don't snore, I protested. He grinned wider. Sure you don't. And just like that, we slipped back into the banter. But beneath the jokes, I could feel the current pulling me somewhere deeper, watching him toss his duffel by the dresser, stretch his arms overhead. Muscles pulling against his t-shirt, I felt the quiet ache I've gotten used to hiding. I turned toward the window. Outside, the trees were gold with early autumn. Everything felt suspended in that. In between space, summer not quite gone, winter not yet arrived. Like nature itself didn't know what came next. Kind of like me, Ryan flopped onto the bed and sighed dramatically. I call the side closest to the outlet. My phone is sacred. I smiled, but my chest was tight. I knew something was going to shift this weekend. Maybe I'd finally say something. Maybe I wouldn't need to. But I felt it in my gut, whatever this trip was. It wasn't just about saving money anymore. It was about seeing how long I could keep pretending I didn't want more. And whether he wanted more too. Asterisk. Ryan and I met during freshman orientation when he crashed into me with a tray full of soggy dining hall pizza. His immediate reaction wasn't embarrassment, it was laughter. Big, carefree laughter that drew a few stares. I should have been annoyed, but somehow I laughed too. He offered to replace my food with something edible this time, and from then on, we were inseparable. Over the years, our friendship became a kind of rhythm. Texts at midnight that read you up when he needed to rant. Weekend hikes when the world felt too loud. Movie nights with popcorn and sarcastic commentary. And always that banter, effortless, quick. Like we spoke a language only we understood. I remember once, during a road trip, he forced me to sing along to a cheesy love ballad while we cruised down the highway. I rolled my eyes and sang the chorus just to shut him up. He looked over at me mid-song, grinning, and said, "You'd be a great fake boyfriend, you know that?" I laughed at the time, brushed it off. But I still think about that moment more than I should. Back in the hotel room, that old rhythm found its place again. We unpacked in sync, him tossing socks into the drawer, me organizing my books on the nightstand. It was familiar, comfortable. Maybe too comfortable. "Hey," he said, holding up one of my books. "You brought poetry? What is this, a solo retreat for the soul?" It's a collection about longing and solitude, I replied, smug. He smirked. Sounds depressing. Can't wait to fall asleep to your sobs. I threw a sock at him and he ducked. Don't knock it till you've actually felt feelings. I have feelings, he shot back, lounging across the bed dramatically. I cried at Toy Story 3, okay? I couldn't help laughing. This was what I loved most about Ryan, his ability to turn any moment into something light, even when things felt heavy. But beneath all of it, there were cracks forming. I felt them every time his hand brushed mine, and I had to pretend it didn't matter, that night. After we returned from dinner, he sprawled across the bed in boxers and a faded t-shirt, scrolling through his phone while I got ready in the bathroom. When I came out, I paused. He looked peaceful, face lit by the soft glow of the lamp. His hair was messy from the shower, damp against his forehead. Something about him felt unguarded. I crossed the room and climbed into bed, careful to leave a polite distance between us. The comforter was thick. The room smelled faintly of his cologne and the leftover pizza we'd brought back. I turned off the lamp and stared at the ceiling. A few minutes passed in silence. Then his voice, low and amused. You're really gonna sleep all the way over there? We're not in middle school. It's fine, I said quickly. I move around a lot in my sleep. You'll thank me. Another pause. Fair enough. But if I wake up with your knee in my ribs, I'm pushing you off the bed. Deal, but I didn't move. I couldn't. My body was tight with awareness of him, his warmth beside me. The soft rustle of the blanket as he shifted, the sound of his steady breathing. I closed my eyes and remembered last summer when we'd gotten tipsy at a friend's beach bonfire. He'd wrapped his arm around me, calling me his ride or die. It was probably the alcohol talking, but the way he squeezed my shoulder lingered longer than it should have. I never asked him what he meant by that. Now, in this quiet room, I felt all the moments we'd never spoken about hovering between us. Like fog, the near confessions, the glances that lasted a second too long, the hesitation when our hands almost met on the console of his car, and then came the complication. The bathroom door creaked, and I realized I'd left my contact case in there. I sat up and padded over in the dark, careful not to bump into anything. When I returned, Ryan was half asleep but shifted toward me, murmuring, You good? Yeah, just forgot something. I slid under the blanket again. This time I was closer, not touching, but near enough to feel his body heat. He didn't say anything else. But then he moved slightly, as if adjusting, and his hand brushed my wrist. Not an accident, not quite deliberate. Just enough to send sparks along my arm. I didn't pull away. I couldn't tell if he was awake or asleep. I couldn't tell if I was doing the right thing. But in that tiny, shared space between the hum of the air conditioner and the weight of our silence, knew something had changed, the kind of change you can't take back, and part of me didn't want to. The next morning started out normal, enough light streaming through the blinds, the rustle of sheets as I blinked awake. Ryan was already up, standing at the edge of the bed, pulling on his hoodie. His back was to me, and for a moment I just watched him. He was humming softly, something offbeat and cheerful, completely unaware of the storm quietly building in my chest. His boxers rode low on his hips, and his hair was still sticking up from sleep. I should have looked away. I didn't. Sleep okay? He asked, tossing me a protein bar as I sat up. Yeah, I lied. Didn't shove you off the bed, right? No. You behaved. No snoring either. Miracles do happen. I smiled, but inside I was still stuck on the way his hand had brushed mine the night before. He never mentioned it, and neither did I. After breakfast in town, we decided to hike the trail behind the lodge, a narrow path winding up through evergreens, dotted with wildflowers and slick with dew. It was the kind of trail that forced you to walk single file, sometimes sidestepping rocks or ducking under branches. We took turns leading, teasing each other about pace and stamina. He always walked ahead just far enough to make me want to catch up. You good back there, old man? He called over his shoulder. I'm literally a month older than you. And your knees sound like it. Maybe if you'd stop jogging uphill like a mountain goat? He laughed and waited, offering his hand to help me over a muddy slope. I hesitated just a second too long before taking it. His grip was firm, warm. It lingered just a breath longer than necessary. That's when it started raining. Not a storm. Just a sudden misty drizzle that made the leaves shimmer and the path muddy. Seriously? Ryan looked up at the sky, frowning. It said clear all weekend. We sped up, trying to beat the weather back to the car. But halfway down, the trail split and we took the wrong turn. 15 minutes later, we were both soaked, standing at the edge of a narrow riverbed we didn't recognize. Okay, he said, hands on his hips. We're officially lost. I laughed nervously. Awesome. There was no cell service. No visible markers. And the rain was turning from mist to real drops now, tapping against our jackets, soaking into the fabric. That's when we spotted it, a small wooden trail shelter, tucked under the trees. One of those emergency rest points, barely big enough for two people to squeeze inside, but it had a roof. And dry ground. We ducked in together, shoulder to shoulder, breath steaming in the cool air. I could feel my pulse in my throat. The shelter was tight, intimate, his leg pressed lightly against mine. My jacket dripped onto the dirt floor. He unzipped his hoodie, shaking off water. Well, cozy, yeah, I said, voice dry. Exactly what I wanted, quality time in a wooden shoebox. He smiled, rubbing his hands together for warmth. Could be worse? Could be no roof. I nodded, staring at my feet, trying not to focus on how close he was. Our knees touched again. Neither of us moved. Then he looked at me, really looked. His eyes scanned my face, the way my soaked shirt clung to my chest, my sleeves pushed back, hands red from the cold. You're freezing. I'm fine, I said too quickly. You're not. Come here. And before I could react, he reached over and tugged me closer, wrapping his arm around me like it was the most natural thing in the world. I stiffened at first. Then slowly, cautiously, I let myself lean into him. His body was warm against mine. I could feel the rise and fall of his breath. The edge of his jaw brushed my temple. For a moment, I let myself believe this meant something. His hand settled on my upper arm, rubbing gentle circles into my damp sleeve. Better? Yeah, I whispered, but my heart was a wreck. My thoughts spun. I wanted more. I wanted to turn into him, to say everything I'd been holding back. I wanted him to say it first, or give me some sign, anything, but I didn't know how to close that gap without risking everything. He shifted slightly, his fingers brushing the side of my neck as he adjusted my collar. I inhaled sharply. Sorry, he murmured. Didn't mean to. It's fine, I said, too fast. He looked at me again, and this time the moment held. His eyes flicked to my mouth just for a second, but long enough for me to feel it. I didn't move. Neither did he. There was something happening, a silent dare, a gravity pulling us closer. But then he cleared his throat and leaned back just slightly. Shouldn't be much longer. Rain's already letting up. Just like that. The tension broke. He didn't pull away completely, but the closeness felt suddenly uncertain, fragile. The rain tapered off. We stayed in the shelter a few more minutes, listening to the sound of water dripping from the trees. I kept waiting for him to say something, a joke, a question, anything to acknowledge what just passed between us, but he didn't. When we got back to the car, he turned on the heat full blast, and we sat there in silence for a bit, watching steam rise from our jackets, pretending nothing had shifted, but something had, and I didn't know if I was relieved or terrified. We didn't talk much the rest of that afternoon. Back at the hotel, the air between us felt heavy. Not uncomfortable, but charged, like something had been unsaid for too long and was pressing in from every side. Ryan flopped onto the bed and turned on the TV, pretending to scroll through channels. I sat on the edge of the window seat, watching the trees sway outside, unsure what I was waiting for. Dinner came and went. We shared pizza in the room, half-hearted jokes tossed back and forth like lifelines. Neither of us mentioned the shelter. Neither of us mentioned the fact that we'd spent nearly an hour pressed together like a couple warming each other in silence, breathing the same close air. By the time the clock struck 10, the awkwardness had given way to a tense kind of quiet, not angry, not cold, just full. like we were both tiptoeing around something that had gotten too big to ignore. I brushed my teeth and washed my face while he scrolled his phone, then climbed into bed with my back to him, staring at the wall. The sheets were warm from his side. I listened to the soft creak of the mattress as he shifted, then the click of the lamp. Darkness. Stillness. Then his voice quiet but not uncertain. You okay? I didn't answer right away. Then, yeah? Another pause. You sure? I turned slowly until we were facing each other in the dark. My chest felt tight. Why wouldn't I be? He shrugged. I don't know, you've just been quiet. So, have you? He huffed a soft laugh. Fair. I could barely see his face, just the outline of it in the moonlight filtering through the blinds, but I knew every part of it. The curve of his jaw, the little scar near his brow from when he tripped on a dock in sophomore year, the way he bit the inside of his cheek when he was nervous, which he was doing right now. I took a breath. My voice came out low. Ryan, yeah? I hesitated. My hand gripped the edge of the blanket, back in the shelter. You almost, I stopped. I mean, it felt like he didn't fill in the sentence. I guess I just need to know if I made that up, I whispered. He shifted closer, just slightly. The warmth of him reached me even through the space between us. You didn't make it up, he said. I stared at him, heartbeat thudding in my ears. His voice was steady, but I could hear the edge of fear in it too. I didn't know if I should say something or if I'd screw everything up if I did. I swallowed. Same. A long pause settled between us, but this one wasn't empty. It was full, overflowing, like all the things we'd never said were finally pressing their way to the surface. I've liked you for a while, I said softly. Ryan exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. I figured. I gave a shaky laugh. Was I that obvious? Not really, he said. But sometimes you'd look at me like you were trying not to look at me, and that's when I started wondering. I couldn't stop staring at him now. The moonlight caught his eyes just enough to make them shine. And you? I asked. He didn't look away. I didn't want to admit it at first, he said, voice lower now, because if I admitted it, then it'd mean things might change. And I liked what we had. I didn't want to lose it. I nodded slowly. But it wasn't enough, was it? No, he whispered. Not anymore. He reached out hesitant, like he was afraid I'd pull away, and let his fingers graze mine under the blanket. Just a touch. Barely there, but I didn't pull away. I turned my hand, interlacing our fingers. My throat tightened at how natural. It felt how right. I keep thinking about that day at the beach, I murmured. The bonfire. When you called me your ride or die, Ryan smiled faintly. I meant it. You were drunk. Yeah, he said, scooting a little closer. But not wrong. My breath caught as his fingers traced up my wrist, slow and unsure. I could feel his nerves in the way his touch trembled. I knew mine matched. I wanted to kiss you that night, he admitted, voice rough. But I told myself I was just being dumb. You weren't. He leaned in, and this time I didn't hesitate. Our foreheads touched first, like we were testing the air between us. Then slowly, so slowly, he tilted his head and brushed his lips against mine. It wasn't dramatic. No music swelled, no fireworks spark. Just a kiss that felt like truth, like something that had been waiting when we pulled back. I kept my eyes closed a second longer, afraid it might vanish if I opened them, but when I did, he was still there. Still holding my hand, still looking at me like I was the only thing in the room that mattered. I've been wanting this for so long, I whispered. Me too, he said. We lay there for a while after that, tangled in the kind of silence that feels like safety. No more pretending. No more dodging glances or jokes that covered too much. Just us, closer than we'd ever allowed ourselves to be. Eventually he whispered, "What happens now?" I smiled, my chest finally unclenching. Now, I guess we stop lying to ourselves. His thumb brushed mine. Good, I'm really bad at pretending, I noticed. He chuckled, and the sound eased something deep inside me. As I drifted off, his arm wrapped around me, grounding me in the warmest place I'd ever known. Morning light crept in slow and golden, brushing across Ryan's bare arm draped over my waist. I blinked awake to the sound of birds outside and the soft, steady rhythm of his breathing behind me. For a second I didn't move because everything felt different. Not in the loud, dramatic way you expect when a friendship shifts into something more, but in the quiet, grounding way that tells you, this is safe now. This is real. His fingers twitched slightly against my side, and I smiled into the pillow. You awake? I whispered. He hummed, voice thick with sleep. Kind of. He didn't pull away. If anything, he curled in closer, his chest brushing my back. I thought maybe you'd pretend last night didn't happen, I said gently. Ryan chuckled into my shoulder. Not a chance. I'm not that emotionally repressed. I laughed softly. Well, that's a relief. We lay there in the silence for a few more moments, just letting the morning wrap around us. I turned to face him, our noses nearly touching. His eyes were warm, still heavy with sleep, but alert enough to study me. So, he said, how weird is this? On a scale from 1 to accidentally holding your best friend single quotes s hand in movie theater? About a 9. Bold of you to assume that was accidental, he smirked. I raised an eyebrow. Wait, wasn't it? He grinned. Guess you'll never know. I swatted at him with a pillow, and he grabbed it mid-swing, laughing. His hand slipped under mine, fingers intertwining naturally again. There was no fear now, no hesitation. Just ease. I kept wondering, I admitted, if I'd ruined it the second I told you. Ryan shook his head. You didn't ruin anything, you just rewrote it, and maybe it was always supposed to be this. His words sank deep, warm, and steady. But, he added, more serious now, we do need to talk about what happens next. Yeah. I exhaled, shifting so I was propped up on one elbow. We live in different cities now. You've got work. I've got grad school starting soon. Not gonna lie, the logistics suck, he said, eyes searching mine. I nodded. They do. But I don't think I can go back to pretending I don't feel this. I don't want to, Ryan smiled gently. Neither do I. He reached over, brushing my hair back with his fingertips soft, familiar, reverent, the kind of touch that felt earned. He leaned in and kissed me again, this time slower, more sure of itself. My heart still fluttered like it had something to prove. When we pulled apart, I let my forehead rest against his. So what are we saying? I asked. We give this a real try? He nodded. I want to. Even if it's messy. I'm okay with messy, I said. As long as it's real. We spent most of that day tucked into each other, curled on the bed, binge-watching a ridiculous cooking show we mocked the entire time. I laid with my head on his chest, his hand tracing idle patterns on my back. At one point, he looked down and said, You know, I used to imagine what this might be like. You, me, like this. Really? He nodded. But every time I thought about it, I told myself it was better to keep things safe. To keep you safe? I didn't want to screw it up. You didn't? I said, voice softer. If anything, you finally gave me the thing I've wanted for way too long. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. That night we sat by the window watching the stars come out. The trees swayed gently under the wind, and the lodge below us was dotted with dim porch lights. The air felt still again, but in a new way, like the kind of stillness after you've said something you were afraid to say and realized the world didn't end. You know, I said quietly, I don't think we need to have all the answers. Right now, Ryan looked over at me, thoughtful. No, I shook my head. We've waited years to get here. I think we can give it a little time to figure out the rest. He smiled, leaned over, and rested his head against mine. Yeah. He said, I think we're gonna be okay. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The morning we checked out, something felt different, not in a dramatic, life-altering way, but in the quiet kind of way that sneaks up on you. Like a chapter ending, not with a slam, but with a sigh. Ryan stood at the dresser, tossing things into his duffel. I folded my hoodie and slid it into my backpack slower than necessary. Neither of us was in a rush, so, he said, zipping up his bag. Back to real life. Guess so. He turned to me, brow furrowed. You okay? Yeah, I said, just don't really want to go back to pretending this weekend didn't happen. His shoulders softened and he stepped closer, reaching for my hand without hesitation. Good, he said, twining our fingers. Because I don't either. It wasn't some grand declaration. It didn't have to be. The way he looked at me, steady and open, said everything. As we left the hotel, we paused by the front desk. The same woman who gave us the one key was there, smiling politely. I could feel Ryan watching me as I reached for it this time. One key again? She asked cheerfully. I glanced at him. He smirked. One's all we need. I smiled back at her. Yeah, one's perfect. Back in the car, the drive felt warmer somehow, even though the windows were down and the breeze was cool. Ryan's hand rested on my knee as he steered with the other, tapping along to the terrible boy band playlist he refused to abandon. I can't believe you still have this. I laughed, hearing the opening chords of a song we used to mock back. In sophomore year, he glanced at me, grinning. It's tradition. Besides, I'm pretty sure this is what won you over. Oh, definitely. Nothing says romance like auto-tuned heartbreak from 1999. Exactly, he said proudly. Timeless. We stopped halfway through the drive to stretch our legs at a quiet overlook, a wide cliffside view of the valley below. Trees spread out in every direction, tinged with early fall color. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. Ryan leaned against the railing, his sunglasses pushed up on his head, hair tousled from the wind. I stood beside him, close but not touching. What now? I asked softly. He looked over at me. Now, we figure it out. And if it gets hard? He shrugged. Then we talk about it, like we did this weekend. I turned to him fully. I don't want this to be some beautiful memory that fades once we're back in the noise of everything else. It won't be, he said, voice firm. We've waited long enough. I don't want to go back to pretending either. There was a pause, comfortable this time. Then he added, I'll come visit next month. We'll plan another weekend. Oh, maybe something longer. I smiled. You do that? I want to. I leaned against him, shoulder to shoulder. And if I make you listen to my sad poetry book again? He smirked. Then I'll cry at Toy Story 3 again just to balance it out. We both laughed as we turned back to the car. Ryan reached into his pocket and handed me something small, a room key. The original one from check-in. You kept this? I asked, surprised. Yeah, he said. I don't know, felt like something we shouldn't toss. I held it between my fingers, staring at the little magnetic strip and worn edges. A cheap piece of plastic, but suddenly full of meaning. Let's keep it, I said, for when we come back. He grinned. Deal. And in that moment I knew this wasn't the end of something. It was the start. Not everything would be perfect. There'd be missed calls, distance, maybe a few doubts here and there. But we'd built this on something real. Years of friendship, of late-night jokes, of near confessions, finally given the space to breathe. And now? Now we weren't running from it anymore. We drove off into the late morning light, windows down, fingers brushing over the console like a quiet promise. The wind whipped through the cabin, carrying our laughter and whatever came next. This was no longer a story about saving money on a hotel room. It was the story about the weekend. I finally stopped lying to myself and realized the person I wanted had been beside me all along, and he wanted me too.